can't believe we've got to the stage where we're having to do this in underground bunkers, Steve.
But to do this, we have to go to a top-secret location, far away from the glare of the media spotlight.
Oh, God, I've got to do everything. These are really heavy, Steve.
Tell me about it. I've just come from all back there.
Come on.
Let's face facts, MudMen is a worldwide hit with an unprecedented amount of adoring fans. Steve's popularity has soared. Last Christmas, he appeared in Panto as one of the ugly sisters in the Deptford Players Amdram version of Cinderella. But his fame has come at a high price. It appears Steve has a stalker.
Wherever I go, yeah, he's there. He's like the sort of Hannibal Lecter of television stalking. It's really weird, but I've got to go get Dr. Michael, right? Back in a second.
How long will you be?
Well, not long.
You always say that.
Depends how long it takes to find him.
I need to bring Dr. Michael Lewis from the British Museum to our top-secret location. He's the deputy head of the Portable Antiquities Scheme, and so needs to record our finds. What he doesn't know is that he's about to do that now.
Michael,
Crikey!
It's okay, it's fine. Just be cool. It's fine, it's time. Let's go.
What's going on?
Just go. There isn't time for question. That's it.
There's no need to strong-arm me.
Easy, my Kelly. Easy, baby.
This is ridiculous. Why do I have to do this?
Easy, baby. Okay. Shut your eyes. Shut your eyes.
They are
Because
shut.
the light's going to be a shock to you here. You ready?
Yeah.
That is a shock.
That is a shock. God.
Good work, Mike. We got it. There's a chair. Okay, you guys.
Come on, Mikey, sit down. How was your trip? Good?
No, it's horrible. Why couldn't we have come by car?
Just the way it was, Mike.
Yeah,
the way
there's
it worked
things
out.
going on, things going on.
Yeah.
Now, this is the Tower foreshore table.
Yeah.
Special permission we got to go down there.
Oh, wow.
There was no detecting, no scraping, so this is a good table, because just remember, yeah, everything
By eye.
is found by
By
eye.
eye.
That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Well, I love this, actually, this little thimble here, but only because it's quite an early one. This is what we call a beehive thimble.
Beehive.
Beehive. But all the little dots have been made one by one, so it's not been machine-made.
Yeah, it's
so it tells it's quite old. So I think that's a nice find. I mean, a lot of people think about thimbles in association with kind of needlework, but I actually think they were used more widely than that. So not just for sewing, but for any sort of manual work that might damage your fingers.
So what else on the table do you like?
Well, I like this here. This is a fragment of a purse bar, a medieval purse.
Oh, I got you.
So it was probably a bit later medieval, actually, but this would have been the bar around someone's purse. So it would have been a leather kind of purse with this metal part, well, this is copper alloy, around the top. So it kind of gives it a form, really. This one's got hatching on it, so that's quite nice. I mean, it's decorated, so it's a lovely little find, that is.
Anything else, Michael?
Well, one thing I noticed over here, which is a little button here, that says Millbank Prison.
Yeah, good find, that. Good find.
Millbank Prison was opened in 1816. At that time, they just let women prisoners in, and then afterwards, the year later, men came as well. And by 1822, it had quadrupled in size, so you can imagine what the living conditions were like then. So that's a really nice find, I like that.
What else do you like on the table?
I really like this Metropolitan Police button.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people think of the Metropolitan Police Service covering the whole of London, but in fact, the city had its own police force. But what I also like as well is we've got a Metropolitan Special Constabulary badge.
Also strange that we have policeman's badge, policeman's button, and policeman's whistle.
I don't believe we did that.
But it looks like a policeman's whistle,
Yeah.
but if we look very carefully on one side, we've got some initials on there. So, Michael, summing up the table, we've got police badges, we've got police buttons, we've got Millbank Prison, got near enough a policeman's whistle, and feeling something quite secure coming off of the table.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Tower of London obviously is famous with the history of securing the country and protecting the people.
OK.
So I think we've got to look at law and order and the history of the British police.
The history of the British police. Mikey, thank you very much indeed.
No problem at all.
Cheers, Mike.
OK,
Do you
thanks
know
so
what,
much.
Mikey, to get out of here, yeah, go down, you'll see a stairwell, yeah? We're about 6 floors below ground, so just keep going up. When you get to daylight, you're free.
OK, cheers, thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Mikey.
See you later.
Bye. Just run.
Coming up, I know what you're thinking, punk. Steve goes a bit Dirty Harry.
That's it! That's it!
This week, our special investigation mud team have been sifting through the evidence on the Tower of London foreshore.
I think it's a whistle.
Is that a whistle?
Looks like a policeman's whistle. Might be.
Now we're going to follow up on some leads as we look into the history of the British police.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, what's all this then?
I'll tell you exactly what it is, Steve. It is the headquarters of the City of London Police. Inside there is the City of London Police Museum. We're going to go and talk to the curator of that museum, and she's going to tell us all about the history of British policing. Come on, Steve.
What's that?
It's the theme of the bill.
It sounds more like Countdown.
There are 43 regional police forces throughout England and Wales, with over 130,000 officers. Because that's all Steve and I know on the subject, we decided to meet up with someone who knows all about the history of policing, Kathy Coulthard.
Hello there, I'm Johnny. That is Steve.
Hi, Kathy. How are you? You good?
Nice to meet you.
No, well, thanks for inviting us to the
Pleasure.
City of London Police. How did the police start?
Okay. The modern police concept dates back to about Saxon times. What you had...
Saxon
times, I know, bizarre. What you had in Saxon times was the concept of a constable, okay? A man in 100 who is responsible for the law and order in a local community. You also have a shire reeve, a sheriff,
Yeah.
who is the man in charge of all the constables.
That's where the sheriff comes from,
That's
the
where
shire
sheriff, yeah,
reeve.
the shire reeve. And they all report to a justice of the peace. So all the way through until about 14 or 1500, that's how policing works. There is one person in each 100 people who is responsible for making sure everyone behaves themselves.
Okay.
And then you get this kind of huge industrial growth through the Middle Ages, and all of a sudden, one person in 100 isn't quite enough.
Yeah.
And what you get are groups of thief takers. The early police, the thief takers, who were responsible for tracking down criminals and bringing them to justice. You then get Jonathan Wild, who was a famous thief taker in the 1720s. Yeah, he was like a hero, and he had hundreds and hundreds of successes to his name, until it turns out that what he's doing is paying the criminals to commit the crimes,
Oh, is he?
tracking them down, and then getting the reward money for bringing them to justice.
When did the police become more organised?
Well, after the disaster of the thief takers, Henry Fielding, the novelist, decided to take a hand. He said that, you know, there should be more organisation, some kind of structure to policing, and he introduced the Bow Street Runners in 1750.
Is this just in London, or where are they based?
Yeah, it's just a London thing, based out of Bow Street Magistrates Court. They did travel up and down the country, so you'll find this is where the police being a sort of national concept comes in, because the Bow Street Runners are sent off up north, down south, wherever there is a crime,
Okay.
if it's big enough.
So were the Bow Street Runners the first police?
No. I know that's how they appear, but actually they weren't a real police force. They were dealing with crimes after they've been committed. The thing about police is that they're supposed to deal with crimes before they're committed, preventative rather than reactionary. And Sir Robert Peel came along into government and said, I think I have a plan. And he devised the Metropolitan Police Act of 1829, the start of the Metropolitan Police.
What equipment have we got?
Basic uniform, tailcoat and trousers, top hat, big boots. You'd have a police rattle, a wooden rattle, like the ones you get at football matches. No whistles, of course, in the early days of policing. A truncheon, that was it.
So are they issued with this equipment?
Yes, the basics, so you get your rattle and your truncheon. After that, you're on your own. You have to go out and buy anything you want extra, like handcuffs. You want to cuff a prisoner, you don't get given those, you have to go out and find
You
your
gotta buy your own
You've got
cuffs?
to buy your own handcuffs.
Steve's brought something to show you. Steve, we have a show and
Okay.
tell. Come on.
We're on the Tower of London, and we found these two. We have a police button, and also a screwed up police badge.
The button is just standard Met Police issue button, so everyone would have worn the set. The badge is a special constabulary badge. The specials, every police force has them. They were originally drafted in to help out in times of social unrest, so rioting during the war. They act like real police officers, but they're volunteers, so they're not paid. And originally would have been completely separate, so they would have had to have, you know, their own hierarchy of command, their own rooms for eating, restaurants, etc. These days, it's all much more cohesive and everyone joins in all together. Crushed up,
Yeah.
because once it's no longer used, you can't allow anyone else to use it and pretend
That's what we
to be
said,
a
yeah.
That's what you
policeman.
said. Steve was right about that.
So-
I thought... but that's
Squash it, and
Okay,
it's no longer...
Steve.
In the Thames.
OK, I've got something for you here, look. It's not a bribe. Here we go. Now, we found that. We didn't know if it's a police whistle or not.
It could well be, because right here.
Oh.
There we go. How's that? comparison-wise.
Well, it's near enough the same.
It's near enough the same.
Pretty good, you know.
So we found what is almost definitely a police whistle.
Almost definitely. These would have been out in the late 1800s, so 1880s approximately. They were really useful during the Jack the Ripper murders because for the first time police could communicate at long distance, they'd use whistle blows.
Can I say, not that useful. They still haven't caught him.
Well, this is very true. Yeah, one day we might.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Kathy.
Absolute pleasure.
Absolutely brilliant to meet you, Kathy. Thank you very much.
We'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wait a second.
I want my badges
Get my
back,
whistle.
haven't
Can I have my whistle back? Honestly, can't trust anyone.
What's it? Dodgy.
Really dodgy.
Really
bunch.
dodgy they are.
She tried to take our whistle then.
When the Metropolitan Police was formed, the population of London feared they would be an oppressive force. It was therefore decided the police wouldn't routinely carry guns in an effort to distinguish them from the army. They were, however, given permission to purchase 50 flintlock pocket pistols for use in exceptional circumstances. Down the years, the police have had to adapt to different threats and introduce various firearms. We've come to the National Rifle Association range at Bisley to investigate.
Joe, I love you.
While being an unarmed force, the British police have always had access to guns when they actually need to. And that's enough of an excuse. Reason.
Historical reason.
That's enough of an historical reason for us to come down to the range here at Bisley to test out some of the weapons the police have used over the last 100 years. Is that right, Steve? And it's valid, it's historical.
Yeah, historical.
It's not an excuse just for us to let off weapons.
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. Come on!
We're meeting friend of the show, John Hutchins, who's going to show us police guns, both old and new.
Historical research, I am excited. Right.
OK then, guys, back on the range again.
Yes. John, we're looking at police firearms, which, considering our police are meant to be unarmed, seems to be a bit of a contradiction in terms. Tell us a bit about the history of the British police and firearms.
Right, and the British police are an unarmed force.
Yeah.
Historically, they don't carry weapons day to day, but there are occasions when they are confronted with armed criminals where they've got no choice but to carry weapons themselves.
Yeah.
Now, historically, it's only fairly recently they've had the specialised firearms squads, very highly trained snipers, firearms officers who train specifically to deal with terrorist attacks, armed robbers. Prior to that, they largely just gave a gun to the nearest constable and said, go and sort it out, Constable
Well, he
Smith.
had no special training. He wasn't part of a special unit.
They would have had a bit of basic training on how to shoot. A lot of them in the early years would have been ex-soldiers, would have fought in the Boer War, the First World War, so would be very familiar with weapons.
This is one thing they would have had. This is a Webley Mark IV, 455.
Yeah.
Fires a very large, heavy round.
It is a big one.
250-odd grain bullet. It's such a heavy and large bullet that if you get hit in the chest, it'll almost pick you off your feet and throw you over.
It's a man-stopper.
It's a man-stopper.
It's a man-stopper.
The bullet stops in your body,
Yeah.
transfers all the energy, so a good solid hit, you're pretty much dead.
OK, let's do this.
To the range.
To the range.
You will see 4 tins of exploding tomatoes.
Those tomatoes are the enemy.
And frankly, we want them dead.
We want them dead, and we want to protect society from those tins of tomatoes. OK.
I think since Mr. Brooker is the John Wayne of the pistol world,
He is good.
we'll let Inspector Brooker save the day.
Advance to the line. Take a bead
Inspector
and
Gadget.
gently squeeze the trigger. Oh! That's one lot of dead anarchist tomatoes. Keep going.
In 1884, following the murder of 2 officers, night patrols in parts of London were allowed to arm themselves with Webley revolvers.
Oh, God, Steve's so good.
That's it! Oh, that's how you kill a
Talk about the money shot.
Exploding toms!
That's it!
Oh,
I
man.
think you're doomed, to be honest.
I really am, yeah.
If you don't get these, they could be bolognese by tonight.
OK, is your bolognese any good, John?
It's absolutely stunning.
OK.
OK, in your own time, nice and carefully.
Carrying a Webley was optional, but those who did gave them the nickname Comforters.
No!
This arrangement officially remained in place until 1936, when the revolvers were taken back and kept under lock and key at police stations.
At the bottom of the tin.
Just give him a stick.
At the bottom of the tin. I think you might be going over the top. Unlike you normally, but...
Yes! Yes! Yay! Yes! Oh, I wanted to take them all out.
Well, I don't think that was a great success,
It wasn't a
Constable
great
Vaughan.
success, no,
I've
I'm
seen
1
better
8.
shooting, frankly, here.
Yeah.
But I think you might come into your own with the modern police weapon.
Having conquered the historic Webley revolver, it's time to find out about the latest in police firearms.
OK, well, I think that's pretty convincingly displayed Steve's talents with the revolver.
Yeah, but that's...
with an action like that.
But that's old school, isn't it?
That's old school.
Now we come
We
to...
were in 1910 digging around in mud and
that's me.
trowels and things like that.
More so Steve's world. Modern world.
Now we're getting up to typical weapons they carry now.
OK.
This is the latest and greatest they've got. The Heckler & Koch G36, semi-automatic 5.56 assault rifle.
What's good about this, apart from the fact it just looks awesome? If it was on a computer game, I would certainly click this as being my weapon of
It
choice.
does look the business. 30-round magazine.
Yeah.
Fires the 5.56mm round, same as the British Army used, American Army use.
So that's your anti-terrorist gun of today, isn't
Yeah,
it?
this is the kind of thing the guys at Heathrow Airport have got. If there's a terrorist attack on Heathrow, the Met Police will counter that threat using these weapons.
Yeah, that's really good, that's really good. OK.
Let's do it. To the range.
To the range. If you'd like to take your shooting stance... Makes your teeth rattle. Rattles and poke the old gun.
After 1936, only trained officers at the rank of sergeant or above were issued with guns, and even then, only if they could demonstrate a good reason for needing one.
The Met's firearms unit was formed in 1966 as the threat of serious organised crime rose.
The Heckler & Koch G36 is the most lethal weapon in the police armoury. An assault rifle used by the German army, the British police's version only fires a single shot each time the trigger is pulled.
I'm back in again.
That's it.
OK.
OK.
Whoa.
That's you done.
Wow! Wow!
Did you say...
That rocks! Sorry.
It's hard to tell, isn't it?
That was absolutely awesome. Well, listen, thank you very much indeed, Tom.
pleasure.
Let's go.
I think the first mudlarking crime-fighting duo could well be on the cards.
We could be like the Starsky and Hutch of the History Channel.
You're so right. People have labelled us like the Chuckle Brothers of history. We're more like Starsky and Hutch. I need a beer to steady my hand. I tell you what, though, Steve, I think we'd be great in an actual crisis situation, don't you think?